Well, thanks for that fab intro there alone. Hopefully we can live up to that one. Josh, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you
for having me.
so much for joining us today. Now, you are one of the most innovative people that I know. I feel like every time we chat to each other, there's always something new that you're into, you've got something else going on, you've switched up this, you're doing something different. So obviously we thought you'd be perfect for today. But if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Hyphen to get us started.
Yeah, so I started Hyphen at the beginning of last year, which, is a great time to start a business just before a global pandemic.
Apparently.
So I did that after 4 years in construction sales, and I think that kind of really showed me that there's loads of businesses out there that are doing really well, but they're using processes, they're using systems that aren't necessarily in the dark ages, but there's more complex systems out there that will probably do a better job for them, and they either don't have the time to then go out and research all of these magnificent pieces of software, or they don't have the right people in-house to do it. So I kind of wanted to change something about that and to really be able to go to SMEs and just help them by using the best software out there to then help them grow, help the people within the businesses be happy in their day jobs, and just try and make a difference to all these smaller businesses.
Fab, sounds like it's all about people, which is what we like to hear.
Yep.
So the title of this talk is Data-Driven Innovation. So what does that mean, and why do you think it's so important?
So in its kind of simplest form, it is using the data that you can collect. We all go on the internet, and there's cookies everywhere, so they're there for a reason. They're there so organizations can kind of see where your interests lie, whether that be to then show you ads that you've been talking about on Instagram, which I think is everyone's pet peeve. But it's really kind of using the data that you have to then make informed business decisions, whether it be that specific messages are going to your marketing contacts that really resonate with them, or that your sales teams are then giving you feedback to then you can go out and make the next show-stopping product, which will really drive your sales and growth through the roof.
Fab. So how can a CRM system help me innovate?
So it's kind of my opinion that if you sell something, you need a CRM. You need to be able to keep track of all the interactions that you're having with your customers, whether it be an email, a sales call, a telephone. You really want to continue that conversation offline as well.
Yeah.
There's also a great system to really monitor your pipeline and say, all right, in the next quarter, in the next year, we've got these opportunities on the table. What can we do about it to really progress? So it's really kind of, having everything in one place to then, as either an S&T or an employee, sit down and say, okay, this is the plan, this is what we want to accomplish, and then this is how we're going to do it.
So you clearly know a lot about software, you know a lot about processes, but in your opinion, which one comes first?
Processes 100%. It's so much easier to kind of sit down and say, okay, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to accomplish it, than to sign up to a nice piece of software, 12-month contract that costs the world, and then look down at your processes and go, oh, all of this software isn't capable of doing it, so we're locked into a contract. We're going to need to then go out and buy another piece of software and try and link that together, and it just kind of snowballs into a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, sounds like it. So in that case then, what should I be looking for in a piece of software when I'm looking for something different?
So when we typically work with clients, we always start off at director level, kind of say, all right, what's the growth plan for the next 2-5 years? Where do you really see the business going? We then like to take a step back and talk to the either heads of departments or just get a general oversee of how the business operates, and what Jan in marketing likes about the piece of software she's using, or what she doesn't like, what people have used at previous companies, what they really like, and more importantly, what they think they need in order to do the job a little bit better and to be more productive. Once we kind of establish that, we then have a wish list of different kind of aspects within the business that we need to kind of tick off. So then we can go out looking for the next piece of software that is then going to tick off most of the wish list and, more importantly, make everyone in the organization happy.
Fab. So we're all familiar with CRMs, or vaguely familiar with CRMs, but what sort of extra data that can they give us that most people may not be aware of?
These days, there's so much. It's kind of ridiculous. We use something called an open API, which then allows other pieces of software to then talk to your CRM.
Okay.
So it could be that you're using a survey tool to then send out surveys to your customer base. That data then can then be automatically input straight into your CRM and can really help drive those sales conversations that your team are having or your marketing team are having. They can really analyze the data and say, okay, this is what we need to target next. This is how we're going to do it. But there's so many different pieces of technology out there, from automated bots to then follow up with your MQLs and your SQLs that kind of just sit nicely in your CRM and can really help drive the business forward.
So much going on in that space by the sound of things.
Yeah.
But like Elevate, you said that Hyphen was started sort of right at the beginning of a pandemic, so we know how that feels. But how do you think the pandemic has changed the way that people sort of use their CRMs and their data and sort of what they're looking for?
I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic, we obviously saw a massive shift to working from home.
Yeah.
And then with that came all the issues of, we need to do this in the office, or we haven't kind of thought about this. So that's when Microsoft Teams and Zooms really kind of accelerated, and you can tell by the quarterly reports that they did quite well out of it. But it was this massive culture shift to, okay, I need to be able to do everything from my bedroom now instead of going into the office every day. So we really saw kind of like a drive in new technology and new pieces of software that enable a more collaborative approach to projects, which I think is really key. So you've got the likes of Slack that has kind of almost come out of nowhere and really is like the ecosystem for all of the internal communications. That then links nicely back to CRMs or reporting software. So it's kind of finding that piece of software that A, your team is going to love and is going to help you be more productive, but B, almost fits in with your culture as well. That's something that you need to look at. You don't want this nice, expensive piece of tech that no one's going to like because it just does the opposite of what you stand for, really.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like you've seen all kinds of different uses of the CRM and these different bits of software. What is the most sort of innovative use of this kind of software that you've seen?
I think it really depends on what industry the client's in. We've seen, especially with COVID going on, we've seen residential units use kind of, use apps like appointment making apps to then book out the gyms, so it's all COVID compliant and there's a good time in between each appointment to then go in and clean. We've seen education organizations use fully kitted out LMS, which is a learning management system, to then really drive reporting from their students and then learn upon how their students are learning. So yeah, it kind of depends, but since the start of the pandemic, it's kind of just skyrocketed.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. It's
Thank
so great to hear about sort of how we can all innovate in our sort of daily business. Something like a CRM can really help with those sort of innovation processes. And it's been great to hear from you today.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And back over to Alona, I think.